Chapter 1. The Lumari homeworld, Lyrath, was a mosaic of contradictions. Snow-capped mountains bled into deserts where bioluminescent fungi pulsed like veins under cracked earth. The planet's diversity mirrored its people. 7 clans, each adapted to their harsh environments, each convinced their way was the only way. The Celestial Accords delegation arrived in a ship shaped like a silver tear. Ambassador Nyren, her skin etched with luminous clan tattoos, greeted them in the glass spire, a diplomatic hub built atop the bones of a conquered rival clan. "Welcome to Lyrath," she said, her voice sharp as frost. "We've prepared discussions." The Accord's lead envoy, a featherless avian Zorath named Kuval, scanned the spire's jagged architecture. "Your adaptability is noted," he said, talons clicking. "But your instability is a liability. The Accord grants recognition, not respect." Nyren's smile didn't reach her eyes. That night, the clans feasted and fought. In the spire's underbelly, the Dust Clan brawled with the Ember Tribe over stolen fusion cores. Blood-splattered murals depicting past wars. Above, Kuval watched via hologram, disgusted. "Savages," he hissed, "but predictable." The Vryn observer, Commander Droth, lingered in the shadows, his scaled face split into a grin. Perfect. Chapter 2. Ambassador Nyren stood before the Accord's high nexus, a ringed station orbiting a dying star. The Council's representatives, Zorath, Vryn, Insectoid Keldari, and others, glowed faintly in holographic tears. "You call us unstable," Nyren said, her tattoos flaring as she gestured to data streams showing Lumari civil wars. "But chaos is our forge. Underestimate it, and you'll fear what we become united." Laughter rippled. Counselor Vinzor, a Zorath elder, leaned forward. "Your unity lasts as long as a supernova's glare. The Accord tolerates you. Do not mistake that for relevance." Nyren's fists clenched. "Mark my words. Push us and you'll learn why we survived this hellscape of a world." Later, in the station's alloy corridors, she cornered Talus, a young Vryn scout exiled for questioning her commanders. "Your people are planning something," Nyren accused. Talus's frills twitched, a sign of fear. "The Vryn don't plan, they consume." Chapter 3. Lyrath's civil wars escalated when High Chieftain Rayler of the Ember Tribe was assassinated. His heir, Kael Vin, found his father's body in the Obsidian Forge, throat slit by a Dusk Clan dagger. "This wasn't them," Kyle growled, noting the blade's too-perfect placement. "Someone wants us divided." No one listened. The clans fractured, the Sky Dominion raided coastal settlements, the Stone Collective poisoned aquifers. Lumari warships, jagged, patchwork vessels, clashed in asteroid belts. Meanwhile, the Vryn mobilized. Aboard the dreadnought Vorax, Commander Droth reviewed footage of Lumari infighting. "Perfect," he purred. "Let them burn themselves out. Then we take their worlds, and their fusion tech." The Accord did nothing. Zorath diplomats called it natural selection. Only Talus, now a fugitive, tried warning Kael via scrambled transmission. "They're coming. Unite or die." Kael deleted the message. Chapter 4. The Vryn struck at dawn. Warships blackened Lyrath skies, raining plasma on the glass spire. Clan leaders died mid-argument. Kael fled to the Ember Tribe's stronghold, a fortress carved into a volcano. From its peaks, he watched the Accord's sensors flicker offline, abandoning them. "They're hitting the Azure Fields," shouted Yara, his second in command. The clan's breadbasket, now ash. Kael's comms exploded with panicked voices. "Dusk Clan's fleet is gone." Stone Collective's leader surrendered. "The Vryn are eating prisoners." He slammed a fist on the war table. "Gather the surviving warlords, now." Chapter 5. The warlords met in a cavern beneath the volcano. Vera of the Sky Dominion arrived with a fractured arm. Tharok of the Stone Collective limped, his leg replaced by a crude prosthetic. "The Vryn took my daughter," Vera spat. "I'll die before lying with you." Tharok snorted. Your pride killed her. We should have mined the belt, not squabbled over. Enough, Kyle's voice echoed. The Vryn didn't just attack clans, they attacked Lyrath, our home, our species' silence. Jara activated a hologram, the Vryn's path of destruction. Worlds glassed, cities melted to slag. They're not conquering, they're erasing us. Thurok grimaced. Even if we unite, we're outgunned. Kael smiled, a feral, desperate thing. Then we fight like Lumari, not with honor, with chaos. He outlined his plan, guerrilla strikes, sabotage supply lines, turning captured Vryn tech against them. Vera stood. I'd rather kiss a Zorath than trust you, but for my daughter. She extended a scarred hand. One by one, the warlords joined. Outside, Talus watched from the shadows, her Vryn armor disguised by a stolen Lumari cloak. She murmured to herself, "You'll need more than chaos to survive what's coming." Chapter 6. The Battle of Cerulean Reach began with silence. Kyle's fleet, a ragged mix of repurposed mining rigs and stolen Vryn skimmers, drifted in the asteroid belt's shadow. Below them, the Vryn carrier Vorax loomed over the Reach, a blue-green world whose oceans fed half the Lumari frontier. Remember, Kael said over the comms, we're not here to win. We're here to unbalance. The first strike was pure chaos. Lumari ships ignited debris fields with EMP charges, creating a glittering storm. Vryn fighters, trained for orderly warfare, scattered. Kael's flagship, Ember's Fury, rammed a battleship's engine block. "Boarding parties, go!" he barked. Inside the Vryn vessel, Lumari warriors fought like feral things. Jara welded bulkheads shut, trapping Vryn squads. Tharok overloaded plasma reactors, laughing as alarms wailed. "This is how Stone Collective digs in." Talus, disguised in Lumari armor, slipped into the carrier's data hub. Her stolen Vryn codes accessed navigation logs. "Kyle!" she shouted over the din. "They're massing at Nyx Prime. It's a staging ground." By dawn, the Vorax was theirs. Call stood on its bridge, Vryn bodies at his feet. "Broadcast this," he ordered. "Let the Accord see what happens when Lumari stop fighting each other." The hologram showed the carrier exploding, a staged defeat to mask their victory. Chapter 7. Talus removed her helmet in Kael's quarters, revealing violet scales and slitted eyes. The warlords recoiled. Vera drew a pulse dagger. "You brought a Vryn here?" "She's the reason we took the Vorax," Kyle said, stepping between them. Talus's frills flattened, a submissive gesture. "My people think in hierarchies. They see your chaos as weakness, but chaos is a weapon they can't grasp." She projected data, Vryn supply routes, defense grids. They're vulnerable here, here, and here. Later, Kael found her scrubbing Vryn blood off her armor. "Why turn on your own?" he asked. She hesitated. "The Vryn purged my unit for retreating. I saw what we'd become." Her claw traced a scar on her wrist. "Your clans fight for survival. Mine fight for hunger." Kael tossed her a Lumari emblem. "Wear this. You're one of us now." Will they accept that? They'll have to. Chapter 8. The Lumari reclaimed worlds not with fleets, but with fungus. Tharok's biotech teams seeded reconquered planets with void spore, a genetically engineered mold that ate Vryn alloys. On Silva Minor, Vryn walkers sank into streets liquefied by the spores. "Like quicksand," Tharok grinned, but angrier. Kael's strategy was simple. Let the Vryn come. At Iron Spire, a mountain fortress, Lumari lured Vryn troops into narrow passes, then triggered avalanches with sonic detonators. Jara's Sky Dominion harried survivors from above. "No prisoners!" she roared, avenging her daughter. Talus disapproved. "This brutality makes you no better than them." "You don't understand vengeance," Jara spat. "I understand it consumes." Meanwhile, the Accord watched. Counselor Vinsor convened a secret meeting. "The Lumari are innovative," he admitted, "but they remain a risk. Prepare sanctions." Chapter 9. 8 months in, the Lumari reclaimed 73% of their territory. Celebration erupted on Lyrath. Clan banners, once symbols of division, hung side by side in the rebuilt glass spire. Coil addressed the crowds. "We are Lumari. Not ember, dusk, or stone. One people." Talus pulled him aside. "The Vryn are retreating to Nyx Prime. They're desperate." "Good. Let's end this." But as Kale's armada jumped to Nyx, they found not a Vryn fleet, but the Celestial Accord's enforcers. Hundreds of Zorath battleships blocked their path. Counselor Vinsor's hologram flickered. "Cease hostilities or face consequences." Coil's voice turned lethal. "You ignored our extinction, now you protect butchers?" "The Accord keeps balance. Stand down or we'll erase you from history." The Lumari ships trembled, caught between the Accord and Nyx's orbiting Vryn defenses. Talus gripped Kale's arm. "There's another way. The Keldari, they hate the Zorath. They'll help." "And risk galactic war?" "You're already in one." Chapter 10. The Accord's sanctions were a death sentence. Trade routes froze. Medical shipments to war-torn Lumari worlds vanished. Zorath assassins bombed the Glass Spire's archives, erasing millennia of history. "They're killing us softly," Tharok growled. Qual convened the warlords. "We have two enemies now. Choose fight both or kneel." Vera slammed her fist. "I didn't survive the Vryn to lick Zorath boots." Jara nodded. "We strike Nyx. Ignore the Accord." Talus interrupted. "The Keldari sent a message. They'll join us if we attack the Zorath homeworld first." Silence. Kale stared at star maps. "If we divert forces to the Zorath, the Vryn will retake everything." "But the Keldari have tech that could end this war," Talus pressed. Tharok laughed bitterly. "You trust another stranger's promise?" Kale's comms pinged, a live feed from Nyx Prime. Vryn troops marched Lumari prisoners into shredder drones. Children, elders. "Enough," Kyle hissed. "Jara, Tharok, take the fleets to Nyx. Vera, with me. We'll meet the Keldari." Talus stepped forward. "I'll go to Nyx. The Vryn, they'll listen to me." "They'll kill you," Jara said. Talus smiled sadly. "Then I'll finally be free of them." As the armada split, Coil whispered to Talus, "Come back alive." She touched his hand. "You first." Chapter 11. Nyx Prime burned. Talus stood on the bridge of the Lumari Dreadnought Starbreaker, watching Vryn forces butcher her former kin. She'd broadcast surrender terms in the Vryn command tongue, pleading for mercy. Instead, they'd detonated prisoner barges mid-transmission. "You are no Vryn," Commander Droth had hissed over the comms. "You are Carrion." Jara's voice crackled over the fleet channel. "Fall back!" The Accords blockading the jump lanes were trapped. Too late. Zorath battleships descended, firing on both sides. Lumari vessels erupted like supernovas. Talus gripped the console as a plasma torpedo struck the Starbreaker. Alarms screamed, "Jara, evac!" The transmission died. On the surface, Vera's ground forces fought in Nyx's ash-choked ruins. She'd vowed to rescue prisoners. Instead, she found mass graves. "Kale!" she roared into her comm, bloodied and pinned behind rubble. "Break! They're gone. Everyone's—" A Vryn energy blade silenced her. When Kale received the casualty report, Jara missing, Vera dead, Nyx lost, he collapsed in the Keldari war room. Talus's final message played on loop. "They'll never stop. You have to burn them all." Chapter 12. Coil wandered the Keldari flagship's halls, haunted by holograms of Lumari children singing unity hymns. His hymns. The Keldari commander Rakar found him in the observation deck. "Your people fought well, but sentiment weakens you." "Sentiment! Kyle world. Vera's body is ash, Jara's ship is scrap, Talus—" "Sacrifices," Rakar interrupted, his reptilian tail flicking. The Zorath homeworld lies undefended. Strike now, and the accord fractures. Kyle stared at the stars. What's the point? We become monsters to kill monsters? Rakar leaned close. The Zorath's balance allowed the Vryn to slaughter billions. They chose this. Now you choose fade into shadow, or cast light so bright it scorches the galaxy. That night, Kale opened Talus's encrypted files. Schematics for a void spike, a planet-killer weapon reverse-engineered from Vryn tech. Her final note read, "For the ones who can't." Chapter 13. The Lumari Keldari Armada descended on Zorath Prime, a world of crystalline spires and floating gardens. Kyle broadcast to the planet. Surrender, or we'll show you the chaos you feared. Counselor Vinsor responded with scorn. You lack the spine for genocide. Kale activated the void spike. The weapon's pulse turned Zorath's oceans to acid. Forests ignited. Millions fled screaming into collapse shelters. Rakar grinned. Now they'll beg for peace. But Kale aborted the strike halfway. Enough. You fool, Rakar snarled. Mercy is a noose. Kyle aimed the spike at Zorath's communication arrays. Send this to the Accord. Cease hostilities, or we glass your worlds one by one. The Keldari mutinied. Rakar's guards seized the bridge. You've lost your nerve, he spat. We'll finish this. Kale triggered Talus's failsafe, a virus in the Keldari systems. Ship stalled. You wanted fire? He said, staring down Rakar. Now you're drowning in it. Chapter 14. The Accord's surrender ceremony dissolved into bedlam. Kyle stood before the High Nexus, flanked by surviving warlords. Counselor Vinsor, his feathers singed, spat, You'll withdraw or face eternal war. No, Kyle said softly, we'll end it. The Void Spike's hologram flickered, aimed at the Vryn homeworld Vrixar. You wouldn't dare, hissed the Vryn ambassador. Kyle's eyes hardened. 16 billion Lumari died 16 billion. You'll pay tenfold. Monster, shouted a Zorath delegate. You made me one. He activated the spike. The hologram showed Vrixar's atmosphere peeling like rotten fruit. Continents cracked. Oceans boiled. Billions vanished mid-scream. Silence gripped the Nexus. Then Keldari warships loyal to Coil surrounded the chamber. The Accord is disbanded, he declared. Any who resist will share the Vryn's fate. Rakar, imprisoned on screen, laughed bitterly. You think this brings peace? You've lit a fire that'll consume us all. Kale turned to the stunned council. Number, I've shown you the cost of ignoring the flames. Chapter 15. 1 year later, the glass spire gleamed, rebuilt with Keldari alloys and Zorath crystals. Lumari banners hung beside captured Vryn war standards. In the plaza below, children of all species played. Lumari, Keldari, even a few Zorath orphans. Coil stood at the spire's peak, Talus's void spike pendant around his neck. She'd survived Nyx, rescued by a Vryn defector cell. Now she governed the Accord's remnants, her scars badges of pragmatism. They call you the Butcher of Vrixar, she said, joining him. And you the traitor queen, he replied. She smiled. Better than Carrion. Together they watched ships from 100 worlds dock at Lyrath's ports. Former enemies, now uneasy allies. Was it worth it? Talus asked. Call gazed at the stars. Ask me in 1,000 years. A child's laughter echoed from the plaza. A Lumari girl handed a Zorath boy a void spore flower, its petals glowing cobalt. They'll hate us, Talus murmured. But they, Kyle nodded to the children, might not.